Barriers are being broken in sport all the time, but before they're overcome, they're often thought of as impossible. And going sub 8 hours on this Kona Ironman World Championship course comes into that bracket. But why?
Well, we are going to be taking a detailed look at those stats and what it will take to break that barrier.
It's now the 40th year for the Ironman World Championships, and within that time, some huge and significant barriers have been broken in this iconic race. If you rewind to 1978, the winning time was 11 hours 46. That just gives you a bit of an idea of how far the sport, the athletes and technology have come, because back then it was probably hard to fathom even breaking the 11-hour barrier. But in the men's race now, they all regularly go 3 hours or more than 3 hours quicker than that time back then. And the women's current record is actually exactly 3 hours quicker. It was set by Daniela Ryf in 2016 when she posted a time of 8 hours, 46 minutes and 46 seconds.
Well, to give you an idea of just how quickly those hour barriers were broken, both the 11-hour and the 10-hour barriers were broken in the same year in 1980 by Dave Scott with an astonishing time of 9 hours and 24 minutes. And then a few years later, he even got close to breaking the 9-hour barrier with a time of 9 hours and 5 minutes. And then finally did break that 9-hour barrier in 1984, very convincingly as well, with a time of 8 hours and 54 minutes. And then over the next few years, we saw the times drop considerably as a result of that famous battle between Dave Scott and Mark Allen. And eventually by 1989, the time was down to 8:09. And then after that, we saw a whole new generation of athletes coming through. Luc Van Lierd on his debut at the Ironman World Champs in 1996 with a time of 8:04. And then for the next several years, the time seemed to get a little bit slow. And it wasn't until 2011 that Craig Alexander managed to break that record, setting a new course record of 8:03. And then in 2017, Patrick managed to beat it again on near perfect conditions here in Kona with a time of 8:01.40. And that has kind of got us thinking, is sub 8 at Kona possible?
Well, then on the women's side, it was Paula Newby-Fraser who was the first woman to go sub 10 when she posted a time of 9:49 back in 1986. And incredibly, only 6 years later, she also was the first woman to break the sub 9 barrier with a time of 8:55. But no other woman went under 9 hours until 2009 when Chrissy Wellington broke the next record. But it's now down to a time of 8:46, as we mentioned earlier, set by Daniela Ryf 2 years ago. So I guess the most significant, or next significant barrier for the women's race will be a sub 8-hour 40. And I wonder if Daniela could be the person to do that.
Now we are talking about the Kona record here, but the first sub 8-hour iron distance record was first recorded in 1996, and that was set by Luc Van Lierd in a time of 7 hours and 57 minutes. And now the current course record still comes from the same race, but a non-Ironman branded event. It is Challenge Lot, and that was set in 2016 by Jan Frodeno in an amazing time of 7 hours and 35 minutes. On the big island of Hawaii, there are so many unique factors that make going sub 8 hours almost impossible.
Let's start with the obvious, the terrain. This course is far from flat. The bike course actually has over 3,000 feet or 900 meters of climbing, and the run has got over 300 feet or 100 meters of climbing. But it's not just the hills that slow the athletes down, it's also the fact that if they're paced incorrectly, it can come back to bite later on. For example, if they ride too hard on the hill up to Harvey on the bike, or if they run too hard up this part of Palani Drive early on in the run, it can certainly come back and affect the race later on. The conditions can change dramatically here, with it being an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and most notably, it's the wind. It does tend to build as the day goes on, and frustratingly for athletes, it can change direction. So much so that some talk about having a headwind all the way out to Harvey along the Queen K, and when they turn around, they still have one on the way back. And then add to that the crosswinds that you can get as the wind comes down off the volcano. It makes it really difficult to try and stay in that aerodynamic position. And the winds can get so strong here that disc wheels aren't actually allowed. So you lose that aero benefit that you'd have on other courses.
Tactics play a big role in any race, but they have a much bigger emphasis when we talk about winning a race as opposed to breaking a record. See, I'm sure all athletes would love to go sub 8 hours here in Hawaii, but to win the World Championship title, tactics and racing wisely have a much bigger part in that. So tend to see athletes trying to make that front pack in the swim, or try to be at least within contention, and then on the bike they want to stay within that group and conserve energy, or they're going to come powering through and trying to split the field apart. But as we saw last year, it can come down to the run, and quite often does here in Hawaii, as we saw with Patrick Lange.
Then there's the added pressure, as it is just one chance each year to become crowned world champion. And you'll see some athletes that really excel in this environment, but others that really might just start to crumble and not have their best performance as the pressure just gets to them. And then finally, as iconic as this race might be, it is a mental battle on large sections of the course. And I personally found that when I was out on the Queen K, both on the bike and the run, because suddenly you're in this desolate landscape and there's just no support, there's no distraction, there's no crowd, something which I'm personally not used to. But a real contrast when you're running on a Lee drive and it is lined full of people cheering you on, and that can really give athletes a boost. Well, enough about why this course is so tough. I want to know how or if it is possible to break the 8-hour barrier. And for that, I think I need a little bit of expert help. So Ryan Cooper has very kindly agreed to join me. Ryan, thanks for joining. Now, Ryan is a designer of Best Bike Split and more recently the Pacing Project. So certainly knows how to break a course down and how to pace it. And Ryan, the first question I want to know is, what combinations of bike and run, so what's the sort of fastest bike and then the slowest run that could break the barrier, and vice versa?
Sure. So I'll actually start vice versa, and I'll start and look at the bike. So kind of the slowest bike time you could expect and still try and hope to break the 8-hour barrier would be in the mid 420s, so 425, 426. So you're still going to have to bike pretty fast. Then once you get off the bike, you're just going to be looking at a low 240s run. So I mean, you're going to be, low 610, 612 type of pace, 620 pace, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to kind of get close to it with that kind of bike time. On the other side of the, kind of the other side, if you can bike close to that sub 420, a 418, it's close to the old bike course record. Last year, obviously, got shattered. But yeah, if you can bike in that and then run in that mid to upper 240s, have a decent swim, then you can possibly do it.
And where on the course are the fastest parts? So where's the fastest part and what time on the bike and the run?
Sure. So coming off of Hawaii is the fastest. You'll see the big, strong cyclists, hitting 75 kilometers an hour plus, 45 miles an hour plus, coming down off of that. And if there's a tailwind section, they'll even extend that 40 miles an hour, as they're starting to come into Waikoloa. And it just kind of all depends on the wind conditions as they're coming off the Hawaii.
And do you know the fastest section of the run, sort of historically?
So,
I mean,
it's funny enough. It's actually, if it's coming down to a tight race, it's actually kind of that last part. You come back into town, and you see if it's a close race, you'll see the athletes. They feel the energy of the crowd. They pick it up, and they're doing sub 6-minute paces coming back into the finish line. So so that portion of the course, if it's a close race, tends to elevate everybody and push them back into the finish.
And where on the course can it be, make or break time, both for the bike and the run?
Sure. So there's a lot of tactics on the pro side on the bike course, and so the make or break is kind of, can you make that lead group going out? And so you see a lot of the stronger athletes trying to keep the distance very small in the swim, so that they don't have to overextend themselves up to Hawaii. On the way back, the winds change a little bit so they can get some separation, but there's a little bit of a pack dynamic going out, and if you miss some of that, then it's a lot harder to try and bridge that gap and come back.
And on the run, is there anywhere that you've seen from analysing past results when athletes have just gone too hard at the wrong point, or actually gone too slow and just sort of not being able to make it back up?
Yeah, a lot of times you see the same kind of problems that you see the age groupers and everybody else has. Is you get off that bike, you're excited about getting off the bike, so you kind of push it too hard right off the front. And so you'll see a lot of sub 6-minute paces coming off the bike going down Alihi, and those sub 6-minute paces don't lead to low 6-minute paces later on in the run. So the smarter runners and the smarter athletes will keep their heart rate in check, make sure they're in a good place up Palani, and then they'll let the rest of it play out.
And obviously we've got a swim course here behind us. Didn't actually talk about the swim. What's the slowest sort of possible swim to still be able to break 8 hours?
I think if you're a really strong biker, runner, that low 50-minute, 51-minute might be the extent of it. If you go any longer than that, then it's probably out of reach.
Yeah, and finally, what conditions do we need both in the water, out on the Queen K, on a lead drive on Saturday to see 8 hours broken?
So ideally you have the wind conditions from last year, a lot calmer. The strong crosswinds didn't ever really materialize on the bike, and so it made for some really fast bike times. Some cloud cover, keeping a little cooler. Even having a little bit of rain, it's going to cool things off, and it'll actually can make things a little bit faster. And so ideally lower humidity or cloud cover with a little bit of rain to keep things cool. If you get that scorching hot heat out on the lava fields, there's no shade. It will make for a hard day.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's break it down and have a look at the times that Patrick Lange actually recorded when he broke the world record, but also what the world record is for each separate discipline. We're going to start with the swim.
Yeah, now that was set in 1998 by Lars Jorgensen, and that was a time of 46:41, which equates to 1:13 per 100.
Yeah, well, Patrick Lange, when he broke the overall record, swam a 48:45, which wasn't that far off the leading pace set by Josh Amberger.
Yeah, but then out onto the bike, and it's Cam Worth that set the course record just last year in 2017, in a time of 4:12:54. And to post that kind of split, that means that he had to ride at around 26.5 miles an hour, or 42.6 kilometres per hour.
Well, Patrick Lange was a bit slower than that, but obviously the pace that Cam Worth set at the front of the race did affect the overall record. Patrick Lange came in with a 4:28 bike split. Well, the run course marathon record was set here in Kona back in 2016 at a pace that the car is now going to be set to whilst Mark and I carry on presenting.
Yeah, that record, it was set by Patrick Lange, a time of 2 hours, 39 minutes and 45 seconds, which equates to 9.85 miles per hour, which the car is setting right now, which also is 15.9 kilometres per hour.
Yeah, well, that's a 6:05 minute mile if you're running to your watch, or a 3:47 minute kilometre, which would give you a 5K, or Patrick Lange went through his 5K at an 18:54, which in theory I could do quite comfortably.
Yeah, well, how about we step it up now to 10K, 37:47. Still there, still there?
I would have lost Patrick by now.
All right, and then half marathon, 1:19:45. So really pushing it. I could make that, but off the bike, 180 kilometres.
And in these conditions?
Yeah, that is some good going. Yeah, this isn't easy. Well, at first glance, all fingers must point to Patrick Lange. He is, after all, the defending world champion and current record holder, finishing just 1 minute and 40 seconds outside of that 8-hour mark. But some do say that the conditions possibly played into his hands and his skill set a little bit more last year, with slightly less winds on the bike, allowing him to stay in touch coming off the bike onto that run, and then allowing him to unleash that blistering marathon run pace.
Well, I'm going to bring Ryan back in again because he's obviously analysed the athletes and their performances in the past. And I want to know, Ryan, if you think Lionel could be the man to actually break 8 hours. Lionel Sanders.
Well, I know it may be tough. If he's going to do it this year, it's probably his best chance. I know he's leaner than he's ever been. He still has power on the bike. This year, there's a couple of new dynamics. So you have Starkey on the bike. Worf obviously is a strong cyclist, the strongest, broke the record last year. So you have this very uber bike, Kienle. You have all of them that if they can work together and actually create more separation from the stronger runners, then they have a better chance of kind of holding them off. The stronger cyclists actually hope that the weather is worse.
Yeah.
And so they'd rather have windier conditions to break that pack up. So it's not conducive to breaking 8 hours, but it may be conducive to winning the race.
Yeah.
So I do give him a good shot. I give Kienle a really good shot. He's had really good races all year.
Well, I mean, he's the athlete who's gone under 8 hours the most times out of all the pros, I think. I think it's a total of 5 that he's broken the 8 hour. Obviously on easier courses than here, and he's the winner from 2014, so he knows how to do it. Could he be the one?
I think it's funny because he's kind of an underdog, and you go, how can Sebastian Kienle be an underdog? But I mean, he's a really great runner. He can stay with those guys on the bike. So if Worf pushes the pace on the bike with Starkey, they come out of the water somewhat close to each other, then he probably has as good, if not better, run than the rest of them. So I think he definitely has a shot, definitely for the podium, if not the win. Yeah.
Great insight. Thanks so much, Ryan. On paper, and according to the experts, it is possible to go sub 8 hours on this Ironman World Championship course, but that will depend on all the factors aligning on the day. And the question remains, will it be this year, in 2018, that we see that record get smashed? Well, hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you have, hit the thumb up like button, hit the globe to subscribe to make sure you get all of our videos at GTN. And if you want to see more stats on Kona, there's a video of Kona in numbers just here. And if you want to know how to pace an Ironman race, Mark's made a video on that just here.